Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm finally back after a whole month of being gone. I admit it, well, I've got a good reason for it. I was on holiday, so I was just taking it a bit slow. But also, the other reason why I haven't been uploading is that because I have actually been trying to upload by doing more of those parallel realm single character runs. However, I realized that the mode is just a bit flawed at the moment and I can't really complete it with certain characters because of the way the mode is built. So there are 3 points I want to make here in this video, and the first thing is the one that I think a lot of people have mentioned, which is the prevalent immunity in all the modifiers in this mode. So someone has said that immunity is a pretty boring and artificial difficulty is because now all the variants, kind of the defensive variants here, are just big stat sticks that you can't really cheese with any debuff strategies. The only problem is that a lot of debuff strategies are actually a core component of some characters' kit as a way to balance them. So things like Squiggly, Valentine, and Philia, for example, they have naturally low attack, and therefore they rely on their debuffs or being able to inflict debuffs to kind of balance things out. Now you take away those debuffs and now they just rely on literally, yeah, they can't even rely on anything really. They have to rely on like signature abilities, which are different within different variants, so only things like Wet Work, Gin Frizz that can gain Enrage can be really useful. All the others that rely on debuffs as well are completely invalidated. So that's one big concern here, is that immunity modifier just kills out a whole bunch of strategies, and not just variant strategies, but also artifact strategies, which is a bit of a shame. Now, I understand that perhaps this immunity is built in to prevent bleed cheese. Cheesing the mode through bleed is definitely something that is possible if there's no immunity, and the thing is, bleed is really prevalent, not just Philia. A lot of variants can inflict bleed pretty easily, and they will just make this mode super easy. There are workarounds around it, however. You don't really need to just slap an immunity. A lot of people have suggested this in the post that I asked for like thoughts and opinions about the mode, and some people have given a lot of different solutions to this. For example, new modifiers that's kind of like Bloodbath signature ability, where the bleed just immediately gets converted to regen. Another potential option is to have debuff reflect, so for every time the opponent gets debuffed, you get the same debuff as well. So it's a bit of a trade-off. You kind of have to think through it a bit more on how to actually properly use it. So there are more creative ways to make this more difficult, and I think given a time limit, the devs just slap an immunity and call it a day, which I understand. It is a big mode. I'm guessing planning the whole artifact system, for example, took a lot on them. So in the next patch or so, I do hope the immunity gets removed and more thoughtful modifiers that are legit difficult and interesting and creative are implemented, because I think, again, this mode, there's so much potential, and I think it could be a really cool game mode, but at right now, it's just a chore, which brings me to my second point. Someone has mentioned that this current mode is pretty much a glorified daily event, and I cannot understand the sentiment, because once you've cleared it and once you've understand the difficulty within each map, it becomes pretty much a chore. There's some randomness in the variants you fight, but that randomness, I'm gonna talk about it more in my third point. The randomness isn't too random. You can still clear the mode and cheese it through with like Annie, for example, and just spamming Destruction Pillar or X-Bot with precision and laser beams. It's still exactly the same. So people have started probably just running the same team again and again just to clear the mode and to get free stuff. Of course, that's a bit expected, because once you've solved it, it just becomes a chore. It stops being interesting and stops being fun. So we need to find a way to make things a bit more interesting and creative and fun without making it seem like a chore. It's gonna be really difficult because people have different preference, right? I know some people are actually struggling with the mode, with how difficult it is, and that's completely understandable. Not everyone has a large collection, but for the end game player, the late game players, which has like a large collection, they can solve this in like an hour or two without breaking much of a sweat. I know those players are in the minority, and I think if we do remove the immunity and open it up to more debuff strategies, it does make the mode significantly easier. But that might be bad for the late game players who are actually trying to find something more challenging and for something more interesting. I think it's not a matter of difficulty that should be changed, which, I mean, if we remove the immunity, it will get affected. But it's more of making things random in a way that's fun. Because right now, the randomness is only in a variance, and it's a bit predictable, you know? If you get lucky, you'll face random diamond variants that don't really have any defensive strategies. And if you don't get lucky, you'll face maybe blue screen, model leader, and plot twisted, which is not too bad because those are common defense, rift defense as well. So people have already figured that out. So this is not that much of a difference, just a slight difference with the modifiers. So one possible solution that people have mentioned is rotating modifiers, kind of in the way of rifts, where maybe every week or so the modifiers change to make things a bit more interesting. I don't know how that's going to be implemented. I think that's going to be something to think about way down the line, because you got to make it random for every single floor, and I think that's going to be a lot of work. Honestly, my personal preference is to have like special event-based parallel realms that I think would be really, really cool. So for example, let's say in Marie's release, let's say, this is just an example, there's a new parallel realms that is opened with the similar difficulty levels, but just the stage is different, the layout is different, the modifiers are different, the variants are different, the artifacts are different, just something a bit more interesting, a bit more different that really tackles on the theme of that particular event. So I don't know, in Marie's release event, for example, maybe there will be more Skullgirl based defensive variants, like more Death Wish, more, I don't know, Graveyard Shift for whatever reason, and of course a lot more Marie defense in the boss nodes. That could, no, that's just something a bit more extra, a bit more special, a bit more fun. Like, I know that's probably not going to be difficult, it's probably going to be easy, but something different is always fun to see, and I think people will enjoy that. I think it's not really about the difficulty, because let's be honest, we don't want to make this mode super difficult, because a lot of players will complain. I think, you know, the late game end players, we're just a minority. You don't want to make it too difficult, but you don't want to make it too easy. You just have to make it a bit more interesting. And I think having event-based parallel realms that release, I don't know, once every 2-3 months or once every patch release or something, could be something that people look forward to and be interested in. And of course, you can get some free rewards, maybe a new avatar icon that is special after clearing that event. Maybe you can add an optional boss mode. You know, these things that will make things a bit more interesting, a bit more cool. Maybe instead of 3 floors, you only have 1 floor, and maybe another event-based parallel realm could have like endless floors. You know, I hope you get what I mean. Like, just shake things up a bit. I think event-based parallel realms is the way to go. But I think to have a base parallel realms as it is right now, with the necessary changes with the immunity, is a good start, and I hope this mode keeps on expanding. My third point that I kind of alluded to earlier is the RNG aspect. Not the modifiers, but more so the variants. Right now, the variant RNG is pretty much a lottery. You can run into any kind of variants, mostly golds and diamonds if you're looking at like No Mercy, but there's no synergy at all, and I think that's a shame. For example, the second floor is elemental based, yet sometimes you face defenders with barely any elemental synergies at all. You can face, like, I don't know, Death Wish, Plot Twisted, and Assassin's Greed. All 3 different elements. I mean, those 3 are quite powerful defenders, so maybe that's a bad idea. But the thing is, I think there needs to be more synergistic setups. For example, a defense team with Rose Tinted, Evergreen Evil, and, I don't know, Plot Twisted in one team. So you can see that there's a core Thorn-based defense there, and maybe there's like a particular modifier for that defense team, and maybe on a different run that gets rotated to something else. Maybe for the second floor, there's like a Dream Band, Assassin's Greed Splitting Image defense boss node that's really a light theme. So instead of having purely RNG based variants in defense, I would like the devs to have like a list of possible defense setups and then do the RNG within that list. it makes things a bit different, it makes things a bit more intentional, and then the difficulty becomes more intentional instead of just something artificial like the immunity. I think that's also a lot of work, but given how long rifts have been out, I think it's not hard to think about like difficult defensive strats or defensive teams. People can pretty much just think about them quite easily. And you know, you've got the flexibility of making modifiers specific to that defense team to up that difficulty level. So I think that's another way to make things a bit more interesting, creative, while having still that difficulty that a lot of people are looking for. So those are my 3 points. The first one is the immunity. That just needs to get rid of as soon as possible. I think that's the biggest main concern right now. Get rid of it. If it makes things easy, that's fine. I think people prefer to have it easier than more difficult. And it opens up a lot of debuff strategies. People can do their own challenge runs more consistently and more fun, because I do quite like enjoy making them if I'm able to actually clear them. But right now, immunity is really annoying and really difficult to like clear it with certain characters like Squiggly. I tried using Squiggly, didn't really work. Second point is to make Parallel Realms not like the other modes in terms of a chore. That's going to be the hardest one. I think a lot more thought has to be put into that, and I don't see this getting released in like the next patch or so, but hopefully sometime next year it could be made into that. The third, the variant synergic setup, I think that should be the second most important after immunity, and I don't think that's too hard to implement either. We already know certain defense setups that are strong. We can just, you know, make a master list of those defense strategies and rotate them among those. That could make a huge difference, I think. So that's the feedback that I have so far. I know that I didn't really get that much response from my post, maybe it's just the timing of it, but if any of you have any more ideas or thoughts about the game mode, please do post it in the comments below. I'll try to send this to the developers so that they have an idea of like the things that people are looking for. So please do comment on this video if you have any other thoughts and feedback on the mode, so that the developers can hopefully watch this video and also read the comments to see what people like. So that's all I have to say about this mode. I think it definitely has a lot of potential to grow. Right now the base is there, and I just hope it continues to grow into something that's really great. With that said, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a nice day ahead, and I'll see you in the next video.